A suffocating stillness pressed in on Anita as she stood by the graveside, her gaze fixed on her father's coffin descending into the cold embrace of the earth. The people surrounding her murmured condolences, but their words were a distant hum against the profound silence in her heart. Numbness was her only companion. First, her mother, and now, her father. At just 15, Anita found herself utterly, terribly alone in a world that suddenly seemed vast and unforgiving. The house, once a sanctuary echoing with laughter and love, now felt like a tomb. Its familiar walls seemed to press in, suffocating her with every reminder of what she had irrevocably lost. The village offered no solace, only a relentless parade of painful memories. With no family left to lean on, Anita knew she couldn't remain. Her only hope lay in the distant city, a place she imagined teeming with opportunities, a chance for a new beginning. With a small, worn bag holding her meager belongings and the last bit of money her father had painstakingly saved, Anita boarded the bus that would carry her towards an uncertain new life. The city roared, a cacophony of unfamiliar sounds, a surging ocean of faces, towering buildings that scraped the sky. It was a sensory assault, a world utterly alien to her quiet village life. Days blurred into a desperate blur as Anita tirelessly roamed the concrete canyons, knocking on doors, pleading for any work. But the city showed no mercy to a girl so young and green. Her meager savings dwindled rapidly, and the faint embers of hope she had carried with her began to die, replaced by a chilling dread. Nights were spent huddled on cold park benches, shivering under the indifferent stars. Hunger gnawed relentlessly at her stomach, and a profound exhaustion dragged at her limbs. She was running out of time, running out of options. One evening, as the last vestiges of twilight faded, a figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, older, her face artfully painted, carried an undeniable aura of self-possession. She paused, her gaze sweeping over Anita's slumped figure, her eyes sharp and assessing. "You look lost, child," the woman stated, her voice surprisingly soft. "What's your name?" Anita hesitated, but the sheer weight of her despair eventually compelled her to answer. The woman introduced herself as Rose and inquired why Anita was sitting alone on the street, with no one else to turn to. And so, Anita poured out her heart. She told Rose everything. About losing. Her parents, about leaving the village, about how she had desperately hoped for a better life in this formidable city. Rose listened patiently, her expression softening as Anita spoke. "There's a way to survive in this city," Rose said after a pause, her voice low. "It's not easy, but you'll make money, and you won't be hungry anymore." A cold dread settled in Anita's stomach, for she understood Rose's unspoken offer. Yet the gnawing hunger and the crushing weight of her own desperation drowned out the protests of her conscience. With a heavy heart, she followed. Rose led her deep into a district where the nights stretched endlessly, brimming with hushed secrets and shadowed encounters. There, amidst other women, Anita found herself waiting. It was a life she had never, not even in her darkest nightmares, envisioned for herself. "It's only temporary," she desperately whispered to herself. "I just need to survive." Anita's new existence was a brutal lesson in survival, one she was forced to learn at breakneck speed. Men came and went, each encounter stripping away another sliver of her soul. The crushing weight of shame became her constant companion. Yet she clung to the grim truth. She had no other choice. Each endless night bled into the next, a monotonous cycle that chipped away at her spirit. She felt herself growing colder, a hollow shell disconnecting from the hopeful girl she once was. Yet, amidst the bleakness, a flicker of light appeared. She found a friend in Grace, a lively girl with a sharp wit and a smile that, against all odds, still held a hint of brightness. Grace had been in the city longer and knew how to navigate its dark corners. The two of them became inseparable, a beacon of shared experience in a world that sought to break them. Anita confided everything to Grace, her gnawing fears, the faint embers of her hopes, and the painful secrets of her past. Yet what Anita didn't realize was that Grace's loyalty had a fragile foundation. Beneath Grace's easy smiles lay a quiet, insidious envy, a resentment that festered and grew as Anita, against all odds, became more confident, more successful in their line of work. Anita, blinded by trust, never noticed the subtle barbs Grace sometimes threw, the way her laughter seemed a little too sharp when misfortune struck. To Anita, Grace was the only person in this unforgiving city she could truly count on. They spent their nights together navigating the shadows, and when dawn broke, they shared their meager meals and whispered their untold stories. It was during one such night that Anita met Daniel. He was unlike the other men who approached her. He wasn't loud, nor did he regard her with the same predatory gaze. There was a gentle kindness in his eyes that made her heart flutter with an unfamiliar sensation. He wasn't a customer. He was simply a man passing by, drawn by a quiet curiosity about the girl sitting alone in the bar. They began to talk, and soon Daniel asked Anita out for coffee. At first, Anita hesitated, her life a tangled mess of secrets and compromises. But something in Daniel's unassuming tenderness drew her in, and she found herself agreeing. Their coffee dates blossomed into dinners, and, before long, they were inseparable. For the first time in years, Anita felt truly seen, cherished for who she was, not for what she did. Daniel knew nothing of her past, and the fear of revealing it, of shattering the one good thing she had found, kept her silent. As their relationship deepened, a momentous question hung in the air. Then Daniel asked it. He proposed. Anita was overwhelmed with a joy so profound it almost brought her to her knees. She had found love. A man who saw past her circumstances, someone who made her feel whole again. She dared to dream of a future where her past held no power, where she could leave the unforgiving streets behind and build a life filled with genuine happiness. But Grace was watching. The simmering jealousy she had so carefully concealed for so long began to boil over. Grace had always secretly envied Anita, her striking beauty, her quiet strength, her uncanny ability to find something akin to love amidst their grim reality. Now, witnessing Anita's radiant happiness, Grace's envy became an unbearable torment. Grace knew everything about Anita's past. She had been the recipient of all her confessions, every whispered secret. Pacing back and forth in her tiny, claustrophobic apartment, Grace's mind raced. She couldn't fathom how their fates had diverged so drastically. Anita, the girl she had once pitied, was now poised to live the very life Grace had always yearned for. Grace had watched Daniel, the man Anita loved, treat her with such unwavering care and tenderness, a sight that gnawed at Grace, filling her with a bitter, consuming envy. One evening, as Grace sat with Daniel at a quiet cafe, the carefully constructed facade of her composure finally crumbled. They had been talking casually, but the bitterness in her voice was unmistakable. A sharp edge she couldn't quite conceal. She leaned closer to Daniel, her eyes narrowing subtly as she spoke. "You know, Anita wasn't always like this," Grace began, her voice dropping conspiratorially. "She used to, well, she did things to survive. She slept with men for money. You probably don't know the full story." Grace braced herself, expecting Daniel's shock, his look of disbelief. Instead, Daniel leaned back in his chair, his expression remarkably calm and steady. Grace's heart pounded, expecting a reaction, a flicker of outrage, to see the horror in his eyes. But to her surprise, he sighed softly and nodded. "I know," Daniel said, his voice gentle but firm. "Anita told me everything." Grace blinked, stunned into silence, her mouth opening and closing uselessly. How could he be so calm about it? She had been so utterly certain that this secret would shatter their relationship. Why wasn't he leaving her, like any other man would have? "She told me the day before yesterday," Daniel continued, his eyes softening as he spoke. "I love her, Grace. I love her for who she is, not for her past. She did what she had to survive, and I respect her for being honest with me." Grace felt a wave of profound shame wash over her, a searing realization of what she had tried to do. Her malicious plan had backfired spectacularly. She had sought to destroy Anita's happiness, but instead, she had only illuminated the unbreakable strength of their bond. Her jealousy, her bitterness, it had all been for nothing. I'm sorry," Grace stammered, her voice trembling, barely a whisper. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. I don't know what I was thinking." Daniel looked at her for a long moment before nodding. "It's okay, Grace." But as Grace walked away that evening, her heart felt like a leaden weight in her chest. She couldn't shake the burning anger, the gnawing bitterness. Why wasn't it her? Why had Anita found someone like Daniel while she remained trapped alone in a life she utterly despised? 2 days before the wedding, Grace found herself at the bridal shop with Anita. Anita was trying on her wedding dress one last time, making sure every seam and detail fit perfectly. As she stepped out of the changing room, radiant in the gown that would transform her into a bride in mere days, Grace felt an uncontrollable surge of fury. Anita looked breathtakingly beautiful, glowing with an inner light. The dress clung to her figure perfectly, and she beamed as she turned to Grace, her face alight with excitement. "What do you think, Grace? Does it look okay?" Grace's chest tightened, a suffocating knot of resentment. "That should be me. Why her? Why not me?" She forced a brittle smile, nodding. "You look beautiful, Anita." But inside, Grace's heart was a furnace of burning jealousy. Every compliment, every joyful smile only fueled her rage. She couldn't bear to witness Anita's happiness. It simply wasn't fair. Anita had taken everything. Daniel, the life Grace had always dreamed of, the happiness she felt she deserved. Grace could feel the bitterness consuming her, twisting into something darker, something venomous. That night, unable to sleep, Grace's mind reeled with hateful thoughts. She replayed the image of Anita in that pristine wedding dress over and over, each vision a sharp, painful sting of envy. She knew with chilling certainty what she had to do. Driven by a corrosive blend of jealousy and anger, Grace slipped out into the night, her footsteps quick and determined. She found a small, dimly lit shop, its windows opaque with grime, and bought a bottle of acid. Her hands trembled as she held it, the cold glass a stark contrast to the burning rage within her. But her resolve was unshakable. If she couldn't have happiness, then neither could Anita. Grace arrived at Anita's house just past midnight, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She wore a mask to conceal her face, her hands gripping the bottle so tightly her knuckles were white. She pressed the doorbell, and after a moment, Anita opened the door, her face a mask of confusion as she beheld the masked figure on her doorstep. She stared at the masked figure in front of her. Before Anita could react, Grace hurled the acid. Anita's piercing scream ripped through the night as she clutched her burning face, collapsing to the ground. The sound of her agony echoed, but Grace had already turned and fled, disappearing into the suffocating darkness, her heart pounding with a volatile mix of fear and a chilling sense of accomplishment. She had done it. Her revenge was complete. Anita lay writhing on the cold pavement, tears streaming down her face, her hands trembling uncontrollably as they touched her seared skin. Her vision blurred, obscured by tears and searing pain. Everything she had ever wanted, every fragile dream she had dared to cultivate, seemed to be slipping away in that horrifying moment. Paramedics arrived quickly, rushing Anita to the hospital. Her body convulsed with unbearable pain, her screams echoing through the ambulance as they tried to calm her. At the hospital, doctors worked with swift precision to clean her wounds. The acid had wreaked havoc, but miraculously, when the liquid was thrown, Anita had instinctively turned her head slightly, saving her eyes from severe damage. After hours of meticulous treatment and careful monitoring, the lead doctor emerged with news. "She's very lucky," the doctor said, his voice serious but calm. "The acid didn't get into her eyes, and although there's some scarring, it won't be permanent. With proper care, her face should heal in about 2 months. It's going to be a long process, but she'll recover." An overwhelming wave of relief washed over Daniel. He hadn't realized how tightly he had been holding his breath until that moment. Tears of profound gratitude welled in his eyes as he thanked the doctor. Anita would be okay. The next few days were excruciating for Anita. Her face remained heavily bandaged, and the pain, though dulled by medication, was still intense. Yet the doctor's words offered a lifeline of hope. She could barely believe she had escaped such a terrible fate. If the acid had hit her directly, she might have been blinded or permanently disfigured. Still, the emotional anguish lingered. Who would want to hurt her like this? The thought of her upcoming wedding, now a distant dream, filled her heart with a deep, crushing sadness. Daniel visited her every single day, bringing fresh flowers and sitting steadfastly by her side, gently encouraging her to stay strong. He made the difficult decision to postpone the wedding, assuring her that they would reschedule only when she had fully recovered. "We'll get through this," Daniel whispered one evening, holding her hand gently. "The wedding can wait. What matters is that you're going to be okay." Anita nodded, grateful for his unwavering support, though a part of her still felt utterly shattered. Who could have done this to her? The question haunted her every waking moment. A week after the attack, Grace arrived to visit Anita in the hospital. Her face was contorted with an exaggerated show of concern, and she performed her role as though deeply distressed by the tragedy. She hugged Anita, careful to avoid her bandaged face, and sat by her bedside, her eyes wide with feigned sorrow. "Oh, Anita," Grace exclaimed, shaking her head. "I can't believe this happened to you. Who would do something so evil? I hope the police catch the person responsible." Anita stared at her, a strange, unsettling sensation stirring within her. Stomach. There was something undeniably off about Grace, but Anita couldn't quite put her finger on it. Still, she pushed the thought aside, unwilling to believe that her best friend could have any involvement in the heinous attack. "They're investigating," Anita said softly, her voice raspy from the painkillers. "The police are trying to find out who did this. I don't know why anyone would want to hurt me." Grace leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "Why don't you just tell the police to stop investigating? You should focus on your recovery. Let God deal with the person who did this. Whoever they are, they'll get what they deserve. Don't stress yourself with the investigation." Anita blinked, surprised by Grace's suggestion. Stop the investigation? But they're trying to help. They're doing their best to find out who did this to me. Grace sighed, shaking her head. "I understand, but maybe it's better to leave it in God's hands. You've been through so much already, Anita. You don't need the added stress. Let the police stop digging. Whoever did this will be punished by a higher power. You just need to heal and move on." Anita thought about it for a moment, unsure what to say. Grace's words made sense in a way, but something didn't sit right with her. Why was Grace so eager to stop the investigation? Shouldn't she be encouraging her to find justice? Anita glanced at Grace, who was still vehemently cursing the unknown perpetrator, muttering things like, "May God punish that wicked person," and "They will never know peace." But the way Grace's eyes darted around the room, the border forced look of anger on her face, made Anita feel deeply uneasy. Something was wrong, but she couldn't quite grasp what it was. "Maybe," Anita mumbled, still uncertain. "I'll think about it." Grace nodded quickly, smiling brightly, as if she had successfully convinced Anita. "Good. You need to focus on your health and the wedding. Everything will be okay." As Grace left the hospital, Anita lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The pain was still there, but her mind couldn't stop replaying the strange interaction with Grace. Why did she feel like Grace wasn't being entirely honest? The doubt gnawed at her, growing stronger with every passing minute. At the police station, Daniel sat across from the officers, anxiety knotting in his stomach. He couldn't shake the image of Anita's burned face from his mind. He needed to know who had done this to her. "Mr. Daniel," one of the officers said, his expression serious, "we've been reviewing the case. Unfortunately, we have some bad news." Daniel leaned forward, his heart racing. "What do you mean?" "There are no CCTV cameras on the street where Anita lives," the officer explained, "and the camera in her house had been disconnected the day before the attack. We can't see who did this." Daniel felt the ground drop out from under him. No, that can't be. How can we find out who did it?" "We're doing our best," the officer said, attempting to sound reassuring. "We'll speak to neighbors and see if anyone saw anything unusual, but without any video evidence, it will be difficult." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, his frustration palpable. Through his hair, frustration boiling inside him. "There must be something more you can do. This was a terrible crime." "We understand," the officer said, his tone sympathetic but firm. "But we have to follow the leads we have. If you hear anything, or if anyone reaches out to you with information, please let us know." Feeling utterly helpless, Daniel left the police station and headed straight back to the hospital. As he walked, his mind replayed the image of Anita. Her face burned, her spirit so battered by life. When he reached her room, he found her awake, her face bandaged, but her spirit miraculously unbroken. "Daniel?" she called weakly, trying to sit up. He rushed to her side, taking her hand gently. "How are you feeling today?" "I'm okay, I guess," she said with a small, weary smile. "They said I'll heal, but it hurts a lot." "I'm so sorry this happened to you," he said, his voice thick with concern. "I went to the police today. They have no leads." Anita looked down, her eyes clouding with sadness. "What if they never find out who did this?" "Don't worry," Daniel said firmly, squeezing her hand. "I won't stop searching. I will do everything I can to find the person who hurt you." Anita squeezed his hand back, grateful for his unwavering support. "Thank you, Daniel. You've been so good to me. I don't know what I'd do without you." "Just focus on getting better," he urged. "We'll get through this together." As he sat by her bedside, he made a silent vow. He would find the person who had caused Anita so much pain, no matter what it took. He couldn't let her suffer in silence. Daniel sat on his bed, staring blankly at the wall, his mind consumed with thoughts of Anita and the horrific incident. Just then, a soft knock came at his door. It was Grace. "Hey, Daniel," she said, stepping into the room with an overly sympathetic expression. "I heard about Anita. I just wanted to come and check on you." "Thanks, Grace," he replied, not really in the mood for company. "I heard they might fly Anita abroad for surgery. That sounds expensive. Are you sure you want to spend so much money on her? What if her face never gets better?" Daniel felt a surge of anger rise within him. "What kind of friend are you? Anita is suffering and you're worried about money?" "I just don't want you to waste your money on someone with a dirty past," Grace said, her voice dripping with disdain. "You could be with someone better. Someone like me." "Leave my house," Daniel commanded, his voice trembling with fury. "I don't want to hear this from you. You are a wicked friend. I've started to suspect you. Be careful," he warned. "Get lost." "Daniel, you're ugly and I don't even like you," she retorted, before he slammed the door shut behind her, feeling a mix of profound relief and simmering frustration. He couldn't believe how selfish and cruel she had been. He turned back to his thoughts of Anita, knowing he needed to be there for her. Now, more than ever. The next day, he visited Anita at the hospital. When he entered her room, she looked a little better, though still clearly in pain. A faint smile lit up her face when she saw him. "Daniel, I'm glad you came." "Of course I'm here for you," he said, sitting beside her bed. "But I need to tell you something important." "What is it?" she asked, her brow furrowing slightly. "Be careful of Grace. I'm starting to suspect her." Anita looked genuinely puzzled. "What happened? Did something happen with her?" Daniel shook his head. "It's nothing I can prove yet, but something feels off. Her behavior, what she said. Just be cautious, okay? Don't let your guard down around her." "I will," Anita promised, though doubt still flickered in her eyes. "Thank you for looking out for me. It means a lot." They spent the rest of the day talking, and Daniel felt a surge of hope. Even amidst the pain, he could see Anita's spirit shining through. But the worry about Grace gnawed at him. What was she truly capable of, and how far would she go to destroy the happiness they were building together? As he left the hospital, Daniel felt a fierce determination to keep Anita safe. He would do whatever it took to protect her from anyone who might want to hurt her, especially Grace. Anita was flown abroad for her surgery, and it was a resounding success. When she returned home, her face looked completely normal again. The faint scars from the acid were gone, and she was as beautiful as ever. Happiness filled her heart, and she finally felt she could truly put the dark past behind her. One afternoon, while Daniel was at work, Grace decided to pay Anita a visit. Upon entering the house, Grace was utterly shocked by how stunning Anita looked. A sharp pang of jealousy stirred inside her, twisting her stomach. "Wow, Anita, you look amazing," Grace forced out, a brittle smile on her lips. "Thank you, Grace." "I feel great," Anita replied, her eyes shining with genuine joy. Grace expertly masked her envy and asked, "I heard you and Daniel are getting married soon. Are you really sure about that?" "Yes, we are. Daniel has been so supportive." "I love him," Anita answered confidently. Grace's smile faltered slightly. "I hope you know what you're getting into. When you were gone, Daniel tried to sleep with me." Anita felt her heart plummet. "What? Why would you say that?" "I'm just trying to look out for you," Grace said, her eyes wide with feigned sincerity. "I didn't let him, but you need to know what kind of man he really is." Anita felt a surge of anger. "I don't believe you. Daniel loves me. Why would he want to hurt me like that?" Grace shrugged, feigning a sympathetic look. "You should think about it. It's not too late to call off the marriage. You deserve better than someone who might betray you." Confusion and hurt washed over Anita. "You're supposed to be my friend. Why are you saying this? I'm only trying to help you. You can still make the right choice," Grace insisted. Anita shook her head, overwhelmed by a sudden chilling doubt. "I need to talk to Daniel when he gets home. He will explain everything." "Just be careful," Grace warned, her voice laced with an almost imperceptible threat. "I would hate to see you get hurt." After Grace left, Anita sank onto the sofa, her mind racing. She desperately wanted to believe in Daniel and their love. But Grace's venomous words lingered like a dark cloud. Was there truth in what Grace said? Had Daniel really tried to betray her? When Daniel came home that evening, Anita confronted him. She needed to know the truth. After he settled in, she spoke up. "Daniel, I need to talk to you about something important," she said, her heart pounding. "What's wrong?" he asked, his brow furrowing with concern. "Grace told me something today," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "She said you tried to sleep with her while I was away. Is that true?" Daniel's expression shifted instantly, his eyes widening in disbelief. "What? No, that's not true. Grace is lying." "Are you sure?" Anita pressed, searching his face, desperately trying to discern the truth. "She said she refused you." "I just need to know if there's any truth in this." "Anita, I swear I would never betray you. I love you. I've been waiting for you to come back so we could start our life together," he insisted, his voice steady and sincere, his eyes filled with an undeniable warmth. Anita searched his gaze, feeling the comforting warmth of his love radiating back. "I believe you, Daniel, but why would Grace say something like that?" "I don't know. I suspect she is jealous of what we have. She wants to drive a wedge between us," he explained. "Don't let her get to you. You're my future, and nothing will change that." Anita nodded, a wave of relief washing over her, followed by a surge of determination. She wouldn't let Grace's corrosive jealousy ruin her relationship with Daniel. As the wedding day approached, Grace could no longer contain her festering jealousy. The sight of Anita, radiant and happy, preparing for her big day with Daniel, was more than she could bear. Desperation clouded her mind as she frantically sought a way to stop the wedding once and for all. One evening, Grace found herself walking towards the same dimly lit store where she had bought acid before. This time, she wanted something stronger, something that would guarantee utter destruction. She walked in, and the wary store owner recognized her instantly. "What do you need this time?" he asked, eyeing her suspiciously. "I need something stronger than the last time," Grace replied casually, trying to mask her true, malevolent intentions. The man raised an eyebrow, sensing something was deeply amiss. "What do you need it for?" Grace quickly fabricated a lie, claiming she needed it for a household problem, but the man wasn't convinced. He told her to return the next day. As soon as she left, the store owner picked up the phone and called the police, reporting the suspicious behavior. He had heard about Anita's previous attack, and an instinct told him Grace was up to no good again. Back at home, Grace waited anxiously for the next day, eager to pick up the stronger acid she believed would finally ruin Anita's life. But that night, her plans were shattered. The police arrived at her house unexpectedly, bursting in and arresting her. Shocked and terrified, Grace pretended she had no idea why they were there. She refused to speak at first, determined to keep her dark secret hidden. However, after hours of relentless questioning, the police grew frustrated. They decided to employ more forceful tactics, and after they beat some sense into her, Grace finally broke down. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed everything. She told them how she had planned to pour acid on Anita's face again, but this time she wanted something stronger. Because the last attempt hadn't caused enough damage, she admitted that her sole goal was to utterly destroy Anita's beauty, to make her suffer and feel the excruciating pain of losing everything she loved. The police were stunned. They couldn't believe the level of hatred and destructive jealousy Grace harbored for her so-called best friend. They immediately informed Anita and Daniel about the sinister plot. When Anita heard about Grace's chilling plan, she was completely taken aback, her mind struggling to comprehend. "Grace? My best friend? I never imagined she would go this far," Anita said, her voice trembling with disbelief. Daniel shook his head, his expression grim. "I warned you, Anita. I told you to be careful. But you didn't listen. Listen. Now look at what she was planning to do." Anita felt a cold wave of guilt wash over her. She had trusted Grace, and now she was learning the devastating truth in the most painful way imaginable. A few days later, Anita decided to visit Grace in jail, clinging to a desperate hope of understanding why her friend had turned against her so viciously. When she entered the cold, gray prison cell, she saw Grace sitting there, staring blankly at the floor. At first, Anita felt a flicker of pity, but when Grace finally looked up, all sympathy vanished. Instead of remorse, Grace's eyes burned with a raw, unadulterated anger. "You think you've won, don't you?" Grace spat, her voice thick with venom. "You get everything, Anita. Everything good happens to you while I'm left with nothing. I hate you. I hate you so much that I will do anything to make you ugly, or even see you die." Anita recoiled, shocked by the sheer intensity of Grace's hatred. "Grace, I never did anything to hurt you. We were friends. Why do you hate me this much?" Grace scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "Because you've always had it easy. You've always been the beautiful one, the one who gets all the love and attention. And now you're marrying Daniel. It's not fair. I was supposed to have what you have." Anita shook her head, saddened by how utterly twisted Grace's jealousy had become. "God forbid, Grace. I won't let you continue down this path. I'll make sure you stay in jail for the rest of your life if I have to." Grace just laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "Good luck with that." Anita walked out of the cell feeling a complex mix of anger and profound sadness. It hurt to lose someone she had once considered her closest friend, but after truly seeing the darkness in Grace's heart, she knew there was no saving her. At the trial, Grace was sentenced to 10 years in prison for her heinous actions. The judge condemned her cruelty and her calculated plan to harm Anita once again. Daniel, who had been an unwavering pillar of strength by Anita's side throughout the entire ordeal, vowed to make sure Grace stayed in jail for even longer if possible. He immediately hired a team of tenacious lawyers to ensure that Grace wouldn't have an easy time. 2 months after Grace's conviction, Anita and Daniel finally got married. It was a beautiful, joyful ceremony filled with an abundance of love and happiness. As Anita walked down the aisle, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The dark shadow of Grace's betrayal no longer hung over her. She had chosen to move forward with her life, leaving behind the pain and wholeheartedly embracing the bright future stretching before her. At the reception, surrounded by loving family and friends, Daniel held Anita close. "We made it," he whispered into her ear, his voice thick with emotion. Anita smiled, tears of pure joy filling her eyes. "Yes, we did. And nothing will come between us now." Their wedding marked the beginning of a new chapter in their lives, one filled with hope, unwavering love, and the promise of a brighter future. The darkness that Grace had tried to cast over them had failed, and together Anita and Daniel moved forward, stronger than ever. The darkness that Grace had tried to cast over them had failed, and together Anita and Daniel moved forward, stronger than ever,